Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another Top Cut breakdown. In today's video, we're going over the All-Star Showdown Top 8. This was a tournament that took place over the weekend. It was an invite-only tournament, so pretty different than the typical system we're used to, where any player can enter the tournament, and you have the Swiss rounds. At the end of the Swiss rounds, you have the Top Cut playoffs with the players with the best records. This is a little bit different. These players were handpicked by Dalen, and this is not to say like who were the best players in the game or anything like that, but this was a very, very stacked Top Cut. Many great players and many notable players were in this Top Cut. So the level of competition was quite high. We're going to talk about the top 8 in today's video. Guys, if you are new here, definitely subscribe, hit that bell so you don't miss a video. If you want to help the channel out, there are tons of ways to do that down in the description below. Check out the Patreon, the Gem app if you want your one-on-one coaching with yours truly, as well as your crosswalk competitive content. Make sure to check out Dex Protection if you need sleeves, deck boxes, binders, any of that card protection stuff. And finally, if you want to buy or pre-order any Dragon Ball Super cards, make sure to use my link in the description to TCG Player. That being said, let's get started with the video. So overall, there were 32 players, so it was almost like a top 32 playoff, but we did go to top 8 day 2, and that's what we'll talk about in today's video after some of the other players were kind of eliminated. It was a single elimination bracket, so we'll get right into the top 8. So running off the list here, there were 3 Vegeks, 2 Vegito, 1 Shenron, 1 Agents of Destruction, and 1 Skillless. Very interesting Top Cut. I mean, it is more of what we're used to seeing, right? It is actually a little bit similar to last week's Top Cut, but the one most glaring similarity is the 3 Vegeks in the Top Cut, in the top 8, and that's what we'll start off talking about in today's video. So 3 Vegeks, definitely the most dominant deck in the Top Cut. Honestly, it's kind of crazy to see it. I mean, last week, I let you guys know that, the 1K I was at, people were saying, no matter what deck they were playing, they were very scared to go up and face against Vegeks because of just the raw explosive power it has. And the really interesting thing about Vegeks is it introduces a level of RNG to Dragon Ball Super that is kind of unprecedented, in the sense that Dragon Ball Super, we draw more cards than most card game players in other games, right? We just do. We draw cards every turn. We have tons of filter and cycle and draw cards. But Vegeks introduces a level of RNG that we haven't really seen before, because Vegeks players can either, mill perfectly and, basically draw 5 on their turn 1. I mean, that's really unlikely, but you get the idea. I'm exaggerating a little bit. Or they can mill 5 cards on their turn 1, and none of them can be useful. They can all be cards you actually want to draw to your hand. It could be multiple Bibbidis. It could be some of your turn 1 overwhelms. And that is a very interesting player dynamic, in the sense that it can be really positive for you if you mill well, and negative for your opponent, or the opposite. It can be really poor for you if you mill negatively, really positive for your opponent if you mill negatively, right? So it adds a very weird dynamic to the Dragon Ball Super card game, but with the amount of tops that Vegeks is seeing in this tournament and last week's tournament, it must be generally consistent. That's kind of what the data shows here. It could be that, or it could be that players are really opting to play Vegeks. Could be one of those two things. Either Vegeks is just truly more consistent, that's why it's topping more than other decks, or it's just that more players are playing it. And honestly, I would kind of say it's a little bit of both, because just from being in the room last weekend, I know a lot of players played Vegeks, and this weekend as well, many players in the top 32 played Vegeks. So it definitely had the numbers to support a conversion rate like this into the top 8. But when the deck does go off, it is ridiculously powerful. I just want to point out, and this is not a likely scenario at all, I want to point out in the top 4 match, Justin Rios milled 5 cards, and all 5 cards he milled got played to the board, right? That's just absolute insanity. Like, when that happens, it's going to be really hard to lose those games. But besides that, with Vegeks, there's obviously a lot of controversy in the community, a lot of talks of certain cards being banned. I think I'm going to make a video where I kind of gather my thoughts a little bit more and give some more details about what I think. But really, it comes down to a few things, right? So Bibbidi, the card that most people are looking at in terms of a ban or limit. Personally, just really quick on my thoughts, I would actually like to see Bibbidi limited, because it introduces a few different dynamics to the game, right? If they mill the 1-of Bibbidi, they don't have it in their hand, obviously, right? There are ways to add Bibbidi back. One way costs 2 with Food Mission Accomplished. The other way costs 3 with the Vegeks chain. So that being said, having ways to recycle it would be interesting. I'm going to actually defer back to a previous video I made for the set 10 ban list, in the sense that I actually think that there should be a ultimate tag on Bibbidi. But I'll make a video where I kind of detail my opinion more on that. But the problem could be that Vegeks kind of just limits card design and card space, which is a problem we've seen with leaders in the past. Think about like Super Shenron, think about SS3 Goku, where the leaders are just so powerful that they really make it hard to design cards around them. You know, any mill cards to make in the future, any black cards to make in the future, well, if Vegex just turns out to be the most powerful leader that can use these cards via milling 5 million more cards than any leader in the game, that could prove to be problematic down the road. So this is definitely not a video talking about, you know, how Vegex should be handled, if it should be handled at all. Just my brief opinions on it. I do think it's kind of showing to be the most powerful deck in the format. Now keep in mind, you know, this tournament and last weekend's tournament, not the biggest tournaments by any means, so maybe not the greatest data to pull from, but I think this weekend, you know, with some of the greatest players in the game being thrown into a top 32, and this being the result, I think that does add a bit more merit to the conversation. So with that being said, I think we'll wrap up the Vegex talk there. You know, whether you think it's problematic, whether you think it's fair, let me know in the comments below what you think. Maybe there is like some type of middle ground we can meet in terms of like making Vegex more balanced, right? If you have an idea, drop it in the comments below. Next up, we're talking about Vegito. Now, whenever you talk about Vegito, you have to talk about kind of like the foil to Vegito, both, you know, thematically and deck building wise, and that's going to be Zamasu. So there were no Zamasu in this top cut. Players did play it at the All-Star Showdown, but it didn't convert into the top 8 like Vegito did. Now, maybe that's for a few reasons. So Vegito is known to be the more defensive version of Zamasu. I've mentioned this in many videos before. Whenever you're going to play just like the 50 best blue cards in the game and call it a mono blue deck, right? You have a few different leader options. You have Vegito, you have Zamasu, you have SS3 Reboot, and you have Soul Striker Reboot, right? All the different leaders add different things to the deck. The ones that have been seeing the most success lately have easily been Zamasu and Vegito. What I've talked about those two leaders are, Zamasu gives you a little bit more proactivity. You know, you have the dual attack in the leader, you have a little bit more draw power than Vegito, but Vegito gives you a lot more of a turtling option. You're able to play defense just a little bit more efficiently because your leader stays a high life longer, more of the time, and you're able to play some more defensive cards, specifically like pseudo combos and more negates, right? You have just the room to play these cards, and blockers obviously too, more than Zamasu does. So maybe with Vegex being so popular, maybe Vegito has a better role in the format. Maybe that's how it's shaping up to be. But besides that, I mean, they are very similar decks. So maybe this could have easily been 2 Zamasus or 1 Zamasu and 1 Vegito. Just so happened that it was Vegito. I will mention from last week, just both my player experience and, you know, the feel of the room. Vegito has a very popular matchup against Gotenks, yellow Gotenks to be specific. And that is a very popular deck right now. I know many players on True Duelists are on it. I know a lot of players are on blue-yellow Gotenks. And with that being the case, maybe Vegito just saw a lot of the Gotenks matchups going into this tournament, and maybe that kind of just propelled them into the top 8. But regardless, Vegito, very strong deck. Talked about it last week, both in the Top Cut breakdown and in my deck profile. Deck needs to see a very specific curve. But what was quite interesting was we saw many of these lists playing the new Janemba Wicked Agent of Destruction from the anniversary box. People were talking about that card being a critical blue unison, the Vegito leader being able to give a unison triple strike. That triple strike crit may have been very, very powerful for Vegito over the weekend. That might have been one of the new tools that kind of pushed it over the top, maybe even past Zamasu. So very cool to see that innovation. 1 Sin Shenron. This is a very cool deck to see in Top Cut. It is one of those decks that kind of goes in and out of the Top Cut, but I do think it is probably the strongest control deck in the format. I mean, Invoker, as we all know, has really just fallen flat. I haven't talked about Invoker in a Top Cut breakdown in weeks now. It hasn't been performing. I don't think people really want to play it as a result of the deck being really, really tight on space and, you know, just kind of conflicting with itself. You know, you want to make it to a later game, but you don't quite have the combo power to do that. And the one card you can combo to do that is your main playmaker, right? Being Rival Seeker Son Goku. But back to Sin Shenron, it definitely is just one of those decks where if you can get to the late game, you have a plethora of ways to win. Whether it's tapping 6 to bring back all your Shadow Dragons, it's going to be really hard for your opponent to come back from that. Or even Fu Shrouded Mystery, which we did see as one of the overall MVP cards of the weekend in general. But Eden playing Sin Shenron, I believe he had Fu Shrouded in his main deck, if not definitely his side deck. I saw him win a few games with that card. So, you know, just Sin getting to the late game, playing mono yellow, and having Makikabura being one of the strongest unisons if your deck can kind of support it, which obviously it's made to be played with Sin Shenron. It's one of the best late game decks you can kind of ask to play, right? Next up, we're talking about AOD. Very, very happy personally to see AOD in this Top Cut. I do think it's a very strong aggro / mid-range pick, and very, very cool to see Marcel take it to the top 8 of the tournament and top with it. It's just a deck that kind of does everything. I mean, you have a lot of removal between the Broly, the Hachiyak AOD. You have your Vegeta SS3 Unison. You have a lot of aggression with the Garlic, bringing out other free 15Ks from the deck. It's a very unique deck, and yes, it does struggle when it doesn't draw cards on the backside, but you have ways to counteract that, whether you're playing Sand Instincts, whether you're playing the Broly Agent of Destruction as well as Turles to keep up your draws after you do Awaken. But the deck is very powerful, very, very cool to see it in the top cut. I do think it has issues with Vegex, though. I think when you just kind of compare aggro decks head on, I do think Vegex is a stronger aggro deck. So I think when AOD pairs up against Vegex, it's going to have a little bit of a tough time, but it does have the ability to play many of the counters to Vegex. Notably, you have the West Kai Keeping Watch, bouncing back Bibbidi to the opponent's hand. But you could also play the Old Man Krillin. The name kind of escapes my head right now. If you have the name, drop in the comments below. But it's an Old Man Krillin 1-drop green card. When you play it down, you combo, and you knock one of your opponent's combos out of their combo area. So that's actually a little bit more of a permanent answer to Bibbidi, which is actually pretty cool. You know, green isn't too popular right now, especially mono green like it was more in the beginning of the format. But the fact that AOD can tech green cards, especially when they help beat Vegex, is quite cool. Last deck we're talking about today, guys, Skillless. We talked about it last weekend. I mentioned last weekend I think it's the best rogue deck in the format. Honestly, with the way the deck is playing and performing the past 2 weeks, I think it could actually be bumped up to meta tier. I mean, if it continues to consistently top, it'll easily be a meta, you know, maybe a tier 1, tier 1.5 strategy. I think that's definitely a solid case for that. But, you know, with Vegex in the format, Skillless being one of the best, you know, aggro to mid-range to turtle decks, it's a deck that can just kind of convert to all those different playstyles. And if Vegex is going to be one of the most popular decks in the format, well, I think Skillless is actually very, very well positioned. Another cool thing about Skillless is that this deck clears Xeno Unisons, you know, in blue decks, unlike any deck I've ever seen before. You know, you have the 2-drop Android 8 Son Goku that brings out 2 10k battle cards. You know, you combine those and your leader. That's going to be 4 swings at a 4-counter Xeno that you can bring out on turn 2. So no matter if you go first or second, that's going to be a very easy way to clear Xeno Unisons, right? Your opponent's going to have a negate. And even if they have a negate, you may potentially have another swinger to swing into that Xeno Unison. So that might not even stop them. By turn 2, that you could have 5 potential swings on the board that are going to clear those Xeno Unisons, which makes Skillless a very, very well-positioned deck in the format. So, guys, that's Top Cut Breakdown for today. I want in the comments below what you think about the format. Definitely let me know what you think. Very, very cool to stream and commentate this event. Thank you, Marcus, for that, for giving me the opportunity. I will see you guys next time.